Welcome to The Audience Connection. This is the podcast where we focus on how businesses can create content that builds more genuine connections with their audience.
Each episode, we dive into the art and science of storytelling, speaking with the sharpest minds in brand, marketing, and creative storytelling.
Our guests share their strategies, insights, and creative choices that made their audiences care.
Brought to you by Casual, the video partner for global brands. With offices in the US, EMEA, and APAC,
Casual leverages the art and science behind creating impactful stories to drive business results for their clients.
we're your hosts. I'm Lydia Chan.
And I'm Ollie Atkinson. This is The Audience Connection.
Welcome back to the Audience Connection. All right, what are we looking at today? Today, we're asking the question, what kind of digital diet are we really feeding our audiences? So in other words, what's the impact of our work?
Yeah, and our guest is Dr. Imran Rashid. He is a physician and then became a tech entrepreneur, author, and he even advises the Danish Prime Minister on digital health and attention. And Imran has spent the last decade exploring how technology shapes our emotions, our well-being, and even our capacity for human connection.
Yeah, that's super interesting, right? And I think one of the interesting ideas that came up in this conversation is Imran's idea of the intention economy. I think I got that right. So like moving away from just like chasing clicks and likes and more towards, creating content that truly serves people, which honestly, a lot of our guests on the show have mentioned that as like a fundamental thing to keep in mind. I think one thing that stood out as well is when he said, we're the last generation who remembers life before algorithms, which is kind of crazy, right? When you think about it, also dating myself a little bit here, but in a way that makes our responsibility even greater.
Completely. And then we also go into why brands should think less about eyeballs, like the clicks, the eyeballs. We just need to think more about humans, how overstimulation is dulling our emotional sensitivity, right? And why Imran believes that storytelling is the antidote to what he refers to as digital junk food. And yeah, a great guest to have on.
For sure. Well, look, if you care about making content that connects rather than manipulates, which is such a bad word, so if you find that word triggering, then this episode will challenge the way you think about your role as a creator, a marketer, or a brand leader. So here's Ollie and Dr. Imran Rashid.
Imran, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you, and thanks for asking. I'm feeling good.
So as a way of introduction, could you please tell us a bit about your experience, and as it's the audience connection, who is your audience and how do you connect with them?
Yeah, so basically, as you said, I'm a trained physician. I turned into a tech entrepreneur like a decade ago because I was really interested in technology to see how it could improve and enhance my way of working as a doctor. And it was in that time where I stumbled upon the flip side of the digital tools that we were using, all of us. In that research process, I wrote a book that quickly became like a bestseller here in Denmark, where I am located. And then basically I was the one driving. I've been driving that conversation here in Denmark for the last decade or so. My audience, it's basically everyone who's concerned about how screens affect human beings, right? And that's everything from, business people who are looking at productivity at work, stress at work, or to families who are concerned about the well-being of their kids, of their family situation. It's also politicians, right? Because they don't know what to do. And they need someone to basically put words into the problem. They can see the problem, but they don't have any words around it. They don't have any knowledge about it. They don't know the difference between a screen, being good, used for the good, or a screen being used to manipulate people.
Well, it's interwoven into society now, isn't it? And like when you talk about trying to go in the opposite direction, it feels almost like an impossible task at this stage.
It is, but it's the most important task. I mean, because also why this is the most important task at hand is because we're the last generation who has actually has a chance of changing things. After us, there's no one there who knows the alternative. The generation coming up, being raised these days now, for them, algorithm, external acknowledgement, and likes, and all of that, impact that commercial products can have on their lives, that's basically just the normal. That's how they live their lives, right? So if you want to change things, we're basically the last generation who are able to see the difference in how it should be and how it could be.
But there is, as you've worked on and you've written about, there are things we can do. And I think, what would be really nice to talk about as well, and this session is a bit around how brands can help with that. Obviously our audience is around, branded content and storytelling, and how we can use that to try and make people feel things rather than just going for clicks and likes. Now, when we first spoke, I think you pulled me up because I said, we're looking at what authenticity looks like, and you had to stop me. You're like, no, it's what authenticity feels like. Can you talk a bit around that, please?
Science tells us that only around 50% follows the doctor's orders. And that was a really big frustration for me. I quickly discovered that the tech industry, they know how to change people's behavior. And that was where I thought, why couldn't I harness that power and use it for good? I mean, if you can get people addicted to cat videos, why can't you get people addicted to eating healthy? And that's also why we need to change how we help people. Don't tell it, make them feel it. And that's why authenticity is not a matter of telling people or wanting to become more authentic, etc. It's actually about how you impact other people. If you like someone, you want to follow their advices. You don't feel like a patient.
See them. Yeah.
No, you don't feel like a patient. You feel like a human. So that's basically interesting, right? Because the moment you create the trust, people can feel that you're authentic, because the micro expressions you have, how you listen, how you pass on your hands, everything. I mean, what is the human experience that you provide to other people? It's not what you say. It's not the words.
It doesn't get in the way of that then. If that's what you're kind of, that response from a doctor when you're sat opposite them and you're going, actually, I really trust this person. I actually quite like them and I trust them to look after me. Once you start doing it on Zoom or you start getting these virtual doctors, that removes all of that, right? Did you have that problem when you were looking at that? Or?
Yeah. And we also found out that if you have an appointment with a doctor, if you have the first conversation face to face, then the rest doesn't matter. You can have as many consultations with that doctor afterwards on video. Why? Because your brain will fill out the blanks.
Does it have to be in person? There's obviously a lot that you gain from that in-person connection, but does it have to be in person, or are there ways you can fire this up without it, even in a remote environment?
So basically this is about the hormones in the brain, right? We have this connection hormone called oxytocin, which is the kind of hormone that tells you someone is, when you are being touched by others, or when the eye contact and all of these things that triggers you in the right direction, like, oh, someone loves me, so I'm feeling seen. So you can't replace the human connection, which means that this at best, the voice and of course looking at a human being, it's okay, but it's not the same as what would happen in a real life situation. So what we're doing here is we're cutting the cords between humans' brains, and we are not necessarily replacing them with something that's just as good, which would mean, in my opinion, like trying to water a plant with a picture of water. See, this is what I think is the... Because AI is someone who built something with the purpose of making you do something. Of course, if AI is used as a tool, fine. But the problem is the same actors who have been preying on our social graphs and social connections for the last 10, 15 years who are going after our critical thinking as well. I mean, there are a lot of, basically the problem here is that no one has examined or studied what is the impact of putting these massive, powerful technologies out in the hands of everyone. We've talked about the attention economy for the last couple of decades. What I foresee and what I've started to look into is what I call the intention economy. And that's where you, as a service provider, experience creator, or product maker, looks at the customer, not just their attention, but also what is the intention and the intended use and the consequences of your product being massively successful, and basically taking responsibility for that. What if Coca-Cola is insanely successful? What does that lead to?
Yeah.
Like, Americans drinking 2 liters of as the regular standard, right? Then you're successful. But what is the cost?
Massive
and I think
issues.
So that's why we need to also change the narrative about putting planet and people before profit.
So if we think about brands and what they need to do to be more intentional with how they engage, what's the first step, would you say, if they need to be more intentional about what they're putting out? What would you advise they do?
Redefine who you're targeting. They're not eyeballs. They're not customers. They're not segments. They're not clients or whatever they are. They're humans. Basically, that's the key starting point. You're targeting humans. Okay, but humans who now and then thinks, mostly feel fear, wants to do something. They have a lot of things in common with you. What you like, they like something else, but still they need something, right? So basically carve out, how are you helping these people? I would say some of the companies that has misused this emotional impact in the worst manner is actually Meta, Instagram, etc., because they know that what drives engagement the most is fear, rage, people feeling bad, loss aversion. Not just that, but also just making people angry, because anger drives our behavior a lot faster, because it's more important for us to survive than it is to feel good. If you feel good, you won't use Facebook. You will go out and enjoy your day.
Is it just a case that we need to remove all of this? And I guess, what does that mean for brands as well? If everything's blocked, which is increasingly happening, like, there are ad blockers. Everybody's put ad blockers if they're sensible on their desktops, or what does that mean?
It's back to what we talked about, the human connection. When you're sitting and creating content, think about, what are you saying to who and why? Normally, when I want to, post something, I have this like, why this, why me, why now? I mean, basically put the context, make the context relevant. And no, it's not about force feeding people with your product, because some people don't like your product. They don't need it. And that's been the strategy for many brands today, that as many people as possible that reacts on our ad is good for business. No, it's not. If they don't need it, and if it leaves them, feeling worse than before they saw your ad, you shouldn't go that way. At least what you should be doing is have your morals, standards at a certain place.
Yeah,
I think that's important.
Have you seen any examples of campaigns or where brands have done this really well, where they've prioritized intention over attention?
Yeah. So one of the tools that I'm really happy about is this Aura Ring.
Oh yes, yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. Why? Because it provides me with insights that can help me in my everyday life thrive better, plan better, be more careful about how I go around, and spend my energy when I have to rest. I mean, a lot of the things that matters to me, because normally, and that's why I really like the phrase they have, which is like giving the body a voice. That's, in my opinion, intentional tools that can help us do things better.
In terms of like clicks and tracks and views, is there a reliable way of tracking emotions?
I mean, everything going on today on social media platforms are basically the biggest A/B split test in history, right? You know who's clicking on what, why.
Yeah.
You know who's scrolling through something, who's not scrolling through something, and these data points are like crazy enough. They're precise enough for these companies to predict, like, the future for a lot of other. The future many years ahead for how we behave, because our emotional system and the reactive parts of our brain are fairly predictable. I was in a company at some point where I worked with a company that focused on changing people's behavior, like through this platform where coaches could help their clients become happy and healthier through, fitness, gym, etc., like coaching. And the data points there were strong enough for us to be able to predict who would be dropping out in the next 2 months with like 95% of accuracy based on the data points that we could collect. So you have everything today that you need in order to predict who's going to do what and who needs what when. Like, for instance, a car crash. It doesn't happen when the car crashes. You can detect it when the driver starts nodding with his head, like 5 kilometers before, or based on the driving patterns, the micro steering. All those things are small signals that ultimately becomes like a change of behavior, or resulted in a car crash, for instance, or a car accident. So that's where we need to become better at picking up the small signals, like the lead indicators.
And you talked about like this overstimulation from digital environment that dulls the senses, and you start to feel kind of like quite numb. And have you got any other examples of how do we start to unpick that? How do we kind of improve the sensitivity again, other than unplugging, I would say?
Yeah, when you have had access to unlimited, enjoyment, personalized experiences that requires zero effort, always on demand, ready to be in, never ends. Of course, your brain will start changing, and boredom will become like a death penalty, like a death sentence. That if you don't get that kind of stimulation, what you will suffer from will be like sometimes I call it abstinences, right? Withdrawal symptoms, where you don't get these kind of dopamine hits from the digital stimulation, and also the amount of dopamine hits will also be a lot higher, because the psychological mechanisms built into how these simulation works. I mean, the reasons why the phone is so addictive is because you don't know what you get, and because you don't know what you get, that resembles the casino, right? It's the slot machine. If you knew that, there's a cat video, no, I won't choose that, then it would be a lot different, that experience. But because there's so much, right, triggering uncertainty built into the experience, then you will constantly be looking for the next, what's happening in a minute. So it's only the expectation is the driver, which is a problem. We have this saying that you become what you eat. Obviously, you want your kids to be healthy, so you provide them with healthy food. But the thing is also that you become what you click on, because these kind of stimulations that are fast-paced, that doesn't satisfy you, that constantly wants you to come back for more, is basically just mental fast food. It's mental junk food. You never get satisfied. There's always something more. But the difference between physical fast food and mental fast food is that this never runs out, and it's not a burger, it's your personalized burger with your taste buds, and every time you want to open it, you have to say, oh, what is it today? Like, it's filled with everything you want. Your friends are
Filled with
there.
gherkins for me.
Yeah, exactly. It's filled with everything you need, you ever dreamt of, that you didn't know you needed. I mean, so that's why they basically place on every psychological mechanism that they know for a fact works. That's what the social graph turned into, to become a psychological trap.
And in terms of like how it applies in terms of storytelling,
Yeah.
are there these feelability moments you get in a narrative or in a story? Is there a way you can kind of take us through why that's so powerful?
Yeah. So the brain doesn't remember facts. It remembers stories. Why? Because there are more emotional hooks to, like, oh, he did that. Oh, this lion broke free from zoo and started walking down the walking street in this children's book. Oh, what happened? Right? Already now you know there's a lion, and you can see it because there are pictures being made in your mind. But if I told you, oh, statistics show that 30% of these people do this or that, then it'll just drop off, because there's nothing to be made. You can use your imagination to think of but the lion is something. Oh, I can see the lion for me, right? Is it a big or a small lion? Is it a Simba? Is it Lion King? I mean, so there are so many associations so when you make people associate or relate to something, that's where you enter the emotional system that they have, that drives most of their behavior, that makes them feel. So when you have access to people's emotions through their associations, then you can start working there, create inspiration, information, but it has to be some kind of fun, also fun facts, stuff that they want to know. Oh, interesting. That's where the magic happens. If you don't put emotions into it, it'll be inhumane. We're not machines. So storytelling is important. Why? Because we remember stories, we can relate to stories, and imagination has really this huge force and power. I'm writing a book right now about mental strength, how to become, better at having mental strength in this world we're living in, and resistance, etc. And one of the studies that we talk about is a study where some kids were told to do some boring stuff, and then they were told to motivate themselves in 3 different ways. One were like, talk about yourself in third person, like, come on, Imran, you can do this. And the second group were told to talk about them in first person, like, come on, I can do it. And the third group were told they could choose between Dora the Explorer costume or Batman costume, and then they could like talk to themselves, say, come on, Batman, you can do it. Who do you think,
You've got to be the third. You've got to think that Batman's going to be nailing it. Yeah.
Of course. You actually can take on other people's. You can become a superhero just by telling yourself that. That's what the imagination can do, right?
It's like Amy Cuddy, even like in an adult context, the kind of superhero pose before you do a lecture or something. Actually physically, standing differently can actually change the way you behave.
Of course. So that's how, again, other people perceive you as someone they, come to think of. So work with that part of humans and walk a little bit away from the data-driven or the information-based interactions that we typically do. If you help people and they really feel helped afterwards, that's something that you can't, really put a price to, because the loyalty, that will stick with that will be unbeatable. That's actually what marketing or branding should be about. It's not about selling products. It's about building trust.
Yeah.
Making people
and it goes
trust
back to that
you.
Intentional idea, doesn't it? About your values and your principles as a brand.
Yeah.
That's what it all should come back to at the end of the day. Like,
Exactly.
regardless of how you're putting it out there, it's what you represent and what you're trying to do for people. And that's become far more difficult, obviously, in the digital.
Yeah, but it's a thin line. There is a thin line between being manipulative and being charming. the thin line is it, why are you doing this? Is it because you want to impact them,
Just
or
want to
is
sell
it because
something,
you,
or yeah,
what's
yeah.
the
Are you
underlying
actually thinking
intention?
about me or you in this
Yeah,
conversation? That's
exactly. Who's there for whose sake, right? And that's
yeah.
basically back to what I discovered and why I left the traditional medical space, because when I found out, okay, being a doctor doesn't necessarily help as many people as I think it does, because
Mm.
I'm telling people what they should be doing, but knowing that only 50% of them are going to actually do it. Most of them aren't going to be able to do this, right? Who is actually getting the most out of this consultation? Me or the patient, right? I'm getting paid for it. I'm feeling a good doctor. I'm saying everything that's good, right? The patient is going back and feeling like guilt tripped or whatever. So that was also where I thought, okay, I need to do something else, but in a broader spectrum. And that's where, my online clinic with 110,000 people is my audience.
One thing that really stood out for me in your book was about the care homes, and how if you don't have the
Yeah.
right organizational structure,
Yeah.
they descend into treating the patients really badly, or there's
Yeah.
kind of almost sort of psychopathic traits almost in that
It does.
environment. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit around why that happens?
Yeah, because if showing empathy becomes your work and not driven by because you actually want to help people, then at some points you realize that if you can't help anyone because they just like suck out all the goodness in you. It's, you don't have it, and you don't get like acknowledged for it or recognized for it, or even you don't get any thanks. No one says thanks. Everyone expects you to just pour out your soul for helping other people. Then at some points you get what the term is called empathy fatigue. You simply don't have enough empathy left. You're basically just being like a swamp being like drained for, completely worn out. And that happens because and the psychological defense mechanism to avoid that is become like cynical. It's become become better at telling stories. Oh, the other also treats them bad, or why she's whining again. Those kind of mechanisms come into play because you become too hard. The alternative is to take everything in, but you don't want to do that because you can't, and you certainly don't want to face your own inhuman change that you have changed into, because that would be like so there you only have two choices, right? Either protect yourself, and suddenly it becomes the workers against those they should be taking care of, and that is like the psychological mechanisms at play. That's why working with people should always, or shouldn't be about it is a job, but when humans are involved, you should always have some kind of checks and balances of the human dignity being preserved, because it's not just a job, it's also about power. If I'm taking care of you, I have power over you, and that power can easily be misused, right?
Well, we talked a bit about your course as well. So you're developing a course, is that right? Yeah. Would you want to talk a bit through about how people can either join that, or how it's helping people as well?
It's basically, I made two online courses targeting designers of all kinds, who want to understand these underlying mechanics or mechanisms at play when you design for humans, right? So first course was about designing how to put the human factor more in front when you're working in the healthcare. When you're creating digital healthcare products, services, experiences, then you need to focus heavily on the impact. All the things that we've talked about, right? How to think about humans, what are the obstacles, what are the underlying factors. Basically, so you learn how to deal with all these issues at hand if you create products or services for patients that needs help. The other course was really interesting also. It was focusing more on AI, how to use AI to basically improve the way we build product, services, experiences, again, with the same thoughts around how to, for instance, what are the problems in the gaming industry, the social media industry, the shopping platforms that you see, pornography, and also streaming services. Because all of these types of digital experiences could be perceived as what you call a digital simulation, because their business models runs not on conscious choices but on impulsive behavior patterns. You're never done scrolling, you're never done streaming, they're endless, which means that the only barrier or the only protection you have is your impulse control, which is limited, which basically runs out this, especially if you're tired, right? So this course takes you through, if you're working in different industries, what are the do's and don'ts, and how do you work with AI, and how can you basically put it to better use with the right moral compass, and what are the implications, how to look at it, how to frame your work, and how to design, what's the design process around it, what are the steps you need to take to make the right choices, and where you don't drive people over with your products. So that's the two courses coming out here in the hopefully in Q3 or Q4.
Yeah, we'll share that in the show notes, and if anyone wants to check it out, they can take a look. I've got a couple more questions, but I just want to, if in feelability you talk about retraining our emotional muscles. As a takeaway, what's one exercise you'd give to a brand team in week one? They're just starting out to try and change. What would you say the best thing is to start with?
Breathe in, breathe out. Simple, but do it in ways that allow you to basically control your breath. Think about it, not just something you do. Mindless breathing is one of the biggest issues we have, because it doesn't help us to get oxygen down where we need it to our brain and everything else, which means that when you are constantly breathing in ways that you don't control, that will lead to you constantly being lacking. Your nervous system is tightly controlled to your breathing in or out. So when you breathe out, you're basically pressing the brake on your nervous system. You're telling your body, your system, that now it's time to relax. So the longer you breathe out, the deep breath will allow your system to relax. When you're constantly breathing short and fast, that means that you're pressing the speeder constantly. The gas pedal is constantly being pressed, which means that you will always be a little bit behind. That's your nervous system that will be constantly alert and never find peace. So I think that is one place where you should be allowing yourself to get those small moments, and to start with what you could do, put it in your calendar. Just 5 minutes breathing exercise, small breaks, close your eyes and take some deep breath. The thing is, when you're constantly running around,
we had an offsite. This is a number of years ago now, and before we started the day, we all sat down and did box breathing together.
Yeah,
it felt a bit silly doing it, but actually we were so relaxed and connected for the rest of the day. It really helped. And you can use tech to do that, right? There's things like Headspace or apps that can guide you through it, and that can help.
One of the most important things that we need to start working with, if we want to go from being those reactive creatures and start being more conscious about what's happening, what we want to happen, that's basically focus on creating that little space between the impulse that you receive and then the reaction or the response that happens. If you get a message and you react instantly, which that means that your emotions will be the driver for that reaction, right? But if you train yourself into getting these kind of, or just recognizing what's happening inside of me, and don't react instantly, but just, oh, what's happening? And just label it. Oh, this happened, and now I'm feeling like that. Okay, fine. Recognize, identify, and choose. Because the choice is only something that happens if you get onto the get on the other side of the reaction.
Is that something that's, as well as, from your obviously your knowledge, that you've come across this in your research, but is that something that you've experienced personally in your work or your personal professional life? Have you had that yourself?
In my young days, I was on the Danish national team in Taekwondo, so doing martial arts, right? I've been doing that for 16 years. And obviously the concentration and the focus and the ability to control yourself and your emotion, of course, is something that you also need to be able to do when you work as a doctor, because that requires the right decisions at the right time, which requires experience. But the problem is that so good decisions require experience, but most experience comes from bad decisions. And that requires you not to feel a bad decision equals you being a failure, but basically just every time you make a bad decision, you're learning, you're improving, you're getting closer to making better decisions next time. And that's the difference between the fixed mindset or the growth mindset, right? Be open for what the world wants to teach you, because then you'll never fail.
You talked about your children being the inspiration for all of this and wanting to leave the world in a better place.
Yeah.
What kind of digital world would you hope they would be in 20 years or 10 years? What's your vision?
20 years? Wow. I mean, you wouldn't be able to imagine the world we're living in today for just like 5 years ago.
Yeah, true.
I mean, so I hope that most of their lives will be spent in togetherness, in closeness, in with caring people, listening people, loving people, and where technology, what we have surpassed these massive diverting factors that fills our lives today. Because just like you can say, when you get a child, that becomes like a massive wrecking ball in your system, an emotional disaster in many ways, because you are completely out of control, but you are really, really focused on doing something that's good for them. It's not about you, it's about them. And your epicenter of your life suddenly changes, where you suddenly understand why life is not about you and never was. It's about someone else, and that is the reason to why you actually put in the effort to take care of your kids, and they grow up, and hopefully at some point they also discover that. What I would hope for my kids when they grow up is to have the same kind of impact when they have their kids. But I could be afraid that the generations growing up, they won't have the capacity to feel the same way, because most of their lives has been about themselves. They have been the main character in their lives, and I'm not sure if they even will know the difference or the need for someone else to enter that space, and with that, putting yourself in second space, if they will be able to do that. I hope so, of course, because ultimately that'll fall back to us. If we succeeded in being there for our kids, then they will be able to take that example with them. But that's one of the things I can worry about. Hopefully, most of their lives will be spent, as I said, outside the digital world, because it will have blended. Hopefully they will look back now as we look back on our parents and how they smoke, how they used to smoke, right? and it will be the same kind of problematic behavior when they think back. Oh, that was when we always sat with screens. And when they think, no, of course, no, why would you use screens? Hopefully you would have seen AI become immersed in how we live, but it will be AI that helps us, that we control.
Yeah. We finish our episodes with the same question for everyone, and it's about your audience of one. So who is that person that you think of who's really important when you're creating, when you're writing a book or doing a talk, or when you're creating, when you're connecting with people? Who do you think of? Who has been really helpful to you when you're creating? Who's that voice in your head?
Oh, there are different voices. There's some, of course, my parents are who I am. I always carry them with me. They're not here anymore, but I mean, I'm carrying them with me. The relationship with them is a motivation force, right? So they're like someone pushing me in the right direction. Obviously, my girlfriend is also my audience of one, because she's my toughest critic, and also the one I learn most from, because she forces me to see me in ways that no one else does, and also to take myself more into account. I mean, to be accountable basically for everything I do and everything I don't do. So that's, I think, and of course my kids, they're also the reason to, everything else I do is about how. They're about why.
They're the why. Yeah. Well, that's beautiful way to end, and thank you very much for the time that you've given to us. And there's loads of insightful stuff there that our listeners can take away. We will put your course, and if anyone wants to find out a bit more about Imran's books. All right. Well, Imran, cool. Thank you very much. It's been great to have you on, and hopefully we'll see you again sometime. That's it for today's episode of The Audience Connection, and a big thanks to Dr. Imran Rashid for such a thoughtful and timely conversation. At the heart of it, Imran's message is simple. If we want to connect, we need to slow down, feel more, and think about the impact we're really having, and maybe just be more of a feely fish. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, do leave us a review or share it with someone who cares about making meaningful content. We'll see you next time.